Textwing 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So that works?
Wie geht's?
Gut geht's.
So after Richard McPhail, Armando Zano, John Mayo, Dale Newman and Steve Hackett, we have the pleasure to have Anthony Phillips on stage for an on-stage interview, which is, as always, interactive, which means you can ask questions. I will start with some questions, then he gives some answers, hopefully. And then you can also ask the questions directly to Anthony. If you are not willing to ask them in English, for whatever reason, if your English is crap like Peter's, then you simply ask them in German. And he will, or I will translate it to Anthony, and if I translate them wrong, Brian will immediately step in as a native speaker here. First row. Okay, also für die nur Deutschsprechenden, das Interview ist interaktiv. Ich stelle ein paar Fragen und dann seid ihr dran. Und bitte macht es zahlreich. Es gibt jetzt keine Limitierung, was die Art der Fragen angeht. Sollte schon irgendwie einen Bezug haben zu Anthony und vielleicht nicht alles sich um 1998 drehen, was die andere Band angeht. Aber ich denke, das kriegen wir alles hin und dann wird er entsprechend antworten. So. We have a special challenge for Anthony because I ask in English and he replies in German.
Das ist wirklich Fahrkarte.
Yeah. Okay, we also hope, by the way, during this interview to have some content, not only fun, also content, and to get some facts from your career, your life as a musician, as a member of a group. 40 years ago, or 45 years ago, I don't know, it's too long ago. Anyway, we're going to start with maybe with an answer about your career that I asked you yesterday evening. And this question is, how many albums did you release?
A lot. Well, you told me a lot more than I thought I did. I think it's about 30.
No.
So this isn't about facts, is it? It's all about lies. It's 30 plus a few extra ones. How's that?
It's close to the truth, yes, actually. I think we came to the number of 36 regular albums, and as we all know, there are plenty of collaborations.
Yeah.
Is it okay that I do nearly everything in English, or do you want me to translate after each bit? Translate? Okay, I see someone, so I do brief translations, okay? Ich habe ihn gefragt, wie viele Alben er veröffentlicht hat, weiß er nicht. Also irgendwas um die 30. Stimmt nicht, sind 36 plus die Collaborations. So from all these albums you recorded, or released also, maybe you recorded more than you released. What projects did you like best, or what were your most passionate albums from that 36 records? Also welche Alben waren seine interessantesten aus seiner Sicht?
I think the ones that you enjoy at the time aren't necessarily the ones you're most proud of later. Sometimes the ones that you're most proud of are the ones that are most painful at the time, because they take a lot of time and a lot of effort. I mean, The Geese That Ghost was 2.5 years off and on of slog. I mean, it had good moments, but Slow Dance was similarly just, battling away in the studio for a long time, not knowing if I was doing something good or rubbish, because I had nobody to play it to. Whereas some of the albums that were quicker, seemed to be more fun, didn't have the lasting value. So the lesson in life, folks, is you have to work really hard, basically.
Ja, also die Alben, die am meisten Spaß gemacht haben, die waren alle Mist. Also, I just told them the album that brought the most pleasure to make have all been crap. That's the bottom line, wasn't it? Something like this. Naja, und die Alben, die halt sehr schmerzhaft waren, er benutzt das Wort schmerzhaft, painful process, wie Geese and the Ghost und Slow Dance, sind die am Ende wahrscheinlich den höheren Wert für ihn haben. So, I can expect you to say Geese and the Ghost and Slowdance are the records you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think the longer you spend on something, the more difficult it's going to be. It doesn't necessarily follow. Some bands have spent years on albums which they then can. The albums don't come out, but I think in my case, the ones which have taken the longest have tended to be the most rewarding. It's not to say some of the short ones haven't been good. Antiques was very quick. So that sort of breaks the mould of what I'm saying. But I think Geese, the Ghost and Slowdance would be my two favourites.
Okay. Also die beiden sind seine Favoriten, hat er nochmal unterstrichen. Okay, they agree, obviously. At least one of them. Must be an older one. Yeah.
Pennsylvania Flickhouse is actually my favourite album.
Okay, and then another question. There is this long series called Private Parts and Pieces, and you know, from my perspective, if you release something, it's not private anymore. So, what's the story behind calling it Private Parts and Pieces?
It was really an accident because when the record companies went very commercial after Geese and the Ghost, the punk was happening, disco. Everybody wanted us to do songs. And I was quite happy to have a go, but I'd prefer to have been carrying on doing Geese the Ghost, a sort of mixture. But suddenly it was be commercial, short songs. And I was very lucky that on Sides they let me release a free album as well, which was sort of home stuff, you know, just kind of, well, I regarded as quite rough music, but it had strong character. It wasn't that well recorded, but they kind of bought it. And so the reason why the first one wasn't called number one was because we thought it was a one-off. And it was typical English Wortspiel. Private Parts, as you know, is something different, but Private Parts is also in the army as well. So, and then hence began that series for being able to release music that maybe wasn't that mainstream. It was more acoustic, it was more homely, and not mainstream.
Also die Private Parts and Pieces Reihe war mehr quasi ein Unfall, weil es keine Reihe werden sollte, sondern er wollte einfach nicht kommerzielle Dinge veröffentlichen nach seinen, naja, eher kommerziellen Alben. Und so entwickelte sich eben die Reihe, wo man eben dringend draufpackt, die man vielleicht nicht so gut verkaufen kann im Sinne von Radio und so weiter. Okay, I just compared Private Parts and Pieces to your commercial records in multi-platinum things. Coming back to these commercial records, this commercial pop music, do you miss having a band, or are your other plans to play with a band in the future? Is there something like this in your mind?
Not really. I mean, I was in school groups for so long. It's a true story. I mean, I remember saying to somebody before Genesis went on the road, I think I'm through with groups, because actually I had so many school groups and we'd had so many different lineups and trying to teach people chords and people didn't turn up and all the rest of it. And you know, I remember getting quite fed up with it actually and thinking, why is this much nicer just playing two 12 strings at Mike Rutherford actually? You know, no arguments. So do I miss it? I think I miss the thrill of playing with a really good drummer. I would love to have played with Phil and Mike as a rhythm section. Because when I did the demos for Peter Gabriel's solo album, that was the first time I played with them properly. And they were so good, they just fitted like a glove. But no, I don't miss all the battles. I don't miss all the battles in groups, you know, and it always tends to happen if you've got a lot of people co-composing. You get to an age where you just want to, you know, do your own thing, and therefore to pick other musicians at will and work with them on different projects, to me is much better than being stuck in something all the time, where you don't have that much freedom to move outside it.
Ja, also er sagt, er wäre viel zu lange in Schillerbands gewesen, dass er das jetzt noch genießen kann. Ja, tatsächlich vermisst er einen Teil davon, aber nicht alles. Also er sagt halt, dass er das ganze Kämpfe, die möchte er halt nicht. Interessant, was er eben sagte, ist, dass er die Rhythm Section, also die Rhythmussektion, super übersetzt, ich weiß, die von Mike und Phil sehr schätzt und mit denen auch offensichtlich für die Aufnahmen oder für die ersten Peter Gabriel Aufnahmen zusammengespielt hat. Was natürlich jetzt die nächste Frage provoziert. So you mentioned playing with Mike and Phil with Peter prior to his first solo album. Do you have the recording with you? So what's the story behind that? Maybe you can explain a bit about that.
Well, I'd studied piano and I could play and was more accomplished than I was when I was with the group. I just used to play very simple chords, and I think Peter wanted somebody who knew his style, knew his music, and who wouldn't argue with him, basically. And so Mike and Phil were great, and he just took me the parts and I was able to do you know, little few extra things, and it was a very, very strange group with John Goodsall from Brand X. It was one of the strangest groups that's ever existed for one night, actually.
For one night?
Well, one session, that was it. And then Pete obviously found Bob Ezra, and so, you know, so he got his whole team, so there was no question of carrying on doing any more after that, but it was fun. We didn't do Salisbury Hill. He didn't do that because that was guitar based. I'm not sure, but I do remember Here Comes the Flood, a few others like that. I mean, it's funny looking back on it.
But these recordings are
they exist somewhere. Yeah, yeah. But I don't have them with me.
Maybe tomorrow. Okay, ja, es gibt tatsächlich eine Session auch noch mit John Goodsall von Brand X, mit dem ja Phil später zusammen gespielt hat. Er sagt halt, er ist von Peter gefragt worden, weil Peter jemanden haben wollte, der nicht widerspricht. It's a funny thing actually, so he didn't ask Tony Banks because he knew that in a fight then.
There's a phrase in English from a TV series, you might possibly say that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
Das war jetzt der Zeitpunkt, wo ich nicht übersetzen soll. Okay, ja, also warum Tony nicht genommen worden ist, kann ich natürlich nicht sagen. Können wir uns auch nicht denken. Yeah, there's one obvious question that, you know, Genesis fans from the very early days, which are here a lot, as you can see the grey hair, often ask or anybody else, why is Anthony not playing live anymore? And of course there's an obvious question, but also the question is, well, you know, isn't there a possibility that you might go back and play live again, and under what circumstances?
You're putting me through the torture again, aren't you? No, I understand the question always has to be asked, and I have to keep answering it. I mean, I just had a difficult time with the group. You know, I started suffering from stage fright from nowhere, and it was a tough one. And we were talking about this earlier, actually, how most people hate public speaking, one of their worst fears. And I think that it's true that a lot of people actually don't like performing on stage. I started off loving it, but when it was more kind of amateur, when the pressure got on, and all the record companies were coming and watching us, and then everything got really intense, you know, and everyone's lives depended on it, I used to worry a lot and think, God, if I don't play well tonight, you know. And I found I just wasn't enjoying the music because the group got quite tense as well. We were kind of, everyone started drifting apart and not really talking. The fact that I'd had glandular fever before might have contributed to it because I was physically quite low. But yeah, so I mean that really blew me out of it, and I was advised by doctors to leave. So I mean, you know, because I got bronchial pneumonia as a result of it. So yes, I've always shied away from stage, apart from speaking, since then. Actually, I don't miss it. I mean, I don't consider myself, this is going to sound strange, I don't consider myself a particularly distinguished player. I consider myself a better composer than player. So I don't think the world is missing phenomenal virtuoso performances, whereas I hope I'm able to make up in terms of more stuff in the studio than by live.
Ja, also kurz übersetzt, vieles kennt man schon aus früheren Berichten und so weiter, was er nochmal sagt, er sieht sich also selbst mehr als Komponist und weniger als Musiker, der spielt und live auftritt, und ja, hat nochmal dargestellt, dass es halt früher für ihn nicht einfach war und vor allem mit vielen Ängsten verbunden, Existenzängste, was weiß ich, wenn Plattenfirmen auftauchen. Insofern hat er sich darüber nie dann danach auch ernsthaft darüber Gedanken gemacht. Maybe one tiny question about that as well. What about, you know, you see people here perform your songs, so it must be a bit strange for you when you're in the audience hearing your songs. But you also, you know, came up to tell some stories about these songs. couldn't that be kind of a concept to say there's some kind of storytelling performance, like saying, you know,
I just stand and tell you about the songs and don't play them. No,
by accident.
I don't think that would work. No. No.
Okay.
Of course, people ask these questions, so we must need to answer them. But anyway, it's nice because you weren't expecting that you did comments on the performance of the guys who actually.
Well, they deserve it because you know, it terrifies me, and the fact they're prepared to do it is brilliant, to be honest, and very well.
Okay, so let's. Okay, I think we can open the debate. So, if you have questions, please ask them.
Ja, also wir haben ja zurzeit eine unheimliche Flut von neuer Musik. Niemand konnte jemals mehr Musik hören, als wir das heutzutage können aufgrund der neuen Medien. Und mich würde persönlich sehr interessieren, wie er für sich herausfiltert, was neue Musik betrifft. Hört er neue Musik, die heute in den Charts ist oder was überhaupt am Markt ist? Wie lässt er sich inspirieren? Oder lebt er wie viele von uns mehr in der Vergangenheit, also in den 70ern vielleicht? Und hört da dann bevorzugt in Richtung, auch vielleicht noch die Frage zu erweitern, wie steht er zu Jazz und Klassik? Klassik kann ich mir nicht vorstellen, aber...
I agree about the first bit, but not the last bit.
Next question. So, now, the question is actually that we live in a time where you have access to all sorts of music, and even more than in former days or in former times when you grew up. So it was a limited access to music. Now you can access music everywhere, and it's a real flood of different styles and stuff. And the question is, what do you decide to hear, or how do you get inspired? By what do you get inspired, and what's your opinion about classical and jazz music these days?
I listen to less pop music nowadays, I suppose because of the age I am. I listen to some bands, but I listen to quite a lot of classical music, a lot of film music. I mean, that's what I do for my living, is TV and film stuff. So, and I think for me, a lot of the most interesting composers and the most interesting music is actually in the films, where you're allowed to do sort of fusion music, which is quite difficult still to do in rock because people get sniffy about it. So those are the main things I listen to. That would be a classical, film, and some odd bands, odd singers, PJ Harvey, people like that, Apatini, a few people, Genesis.
Also er sagt, dass er vor allem Filmmusiken gerne hört und sich davon auch inspirieren kann, und daneben aber auch solche Sachen wie PJ Harvey zum Beispiel, was ja jetzt vielleicht ein Kontrast dazu ist. Ja, und das ist so sein Hauptelement. Weitere Fragen?
How do you do your film music? How do you compose it? Do you see the film and play piano to it, or do you have, when you see the film, do you have some pieces in mind which you have already written and say, oh, this fits to this movie, or how do you?
It can work both ways, really. Often you've got an idea already which you fit to it. Sometimes you just do it from scratch. I do a lot of what's called library music, which is sort of stock background music, which is quite nice as well, because you don't have the pressure of, if you do commission music, sometimes you get terrible deadlines, about 3 weeks. I've heard awful stories about film composers who literally, have to take all sorts of substances to stay awake. And, a director will just come in and wipe it out, and you have to rewrite the thing all through the night. So I've tended to drift away from that more into what's called library music, which is, it's more like making an album actually, really. You make an album of descriptive music in your own time, and then that is picked up ad hoc and used on television programs. I mean, I make a lot of money from music used in the background music in Germany, for instance. So thank you.
Ja, die Frage war halt, wie er quasi die Sachen auch komponiert und schreibt, und er hat nochmal gesagt, dass er im Prinzip also keine Filmmusik im eigentlichen Sinne mehr macht, weil der Druck da ein ganz anderer ist. Er muss quasi über Nacht Sachen ändern, sondern sich in diese sogenannte Library-Musik konzentriert, was bedeutet, er kann Dinge entwickeln und diese dann entsprechend auch anbieten, die dann in Datenbanken entsprechend auch benutzt werden. Speaking about this library music thing, because I think that for most people it's very strange to, the term library music.
It's quite easy to explain it if you think of photographs in the paper, often in the morning. They won't be somebody that's gone out and taken the photograph the day before. They need a photograph of somewhere, so they call a photographic library. We need a photo. Music works exactly the same. There's so much TV, they don't have time to get a composer. They don't want to argue with a composer. The editors now can edit very finely, and they quite like the control. They can take a load of pieces of music and make like a collage. I've had pieces of music of mine chopped up, orchestral pieces, and made to look as if they were written for the program. So it's very sophisticated, and a huge amount of music on television is not written for the program. It's taken from libraries. Yeah.
Also es geht genau wie bei Fotodatenbanken, da werden eben dann Musikstücke und auch manchmal nur Teile davon einfach benutzt, um Fernsehprogramme mit Musik zu untermalen. German, you said. So what, can you give an example of what has been used in Germany from your music, which we might not know?
I'd have to go through my statements, but hundreds of pieces of music. I know a piece of music was used for a German bank commercial, but beyond that, no, I mean regularly, just lots and lots of different. I have about 1,000 pieces in the library.
Okay.
And so a lot of them get used all over Europe and all over the States, etc.
Okay.
So.
Also er hat mehr als 1000 Stücke in seiner Datenbank quasi, die hier und da verwendet werden, aber er weiß selber teilweise auch nicht wo. Insofern, ja, für ihn ein sehr einfacher Prozess, weil er es eben schreiben kann und fertigstellen kann, und für die anderen auch sehr einfach, weil sie einfach nehmen können und er wird dafür bezahlt. Das ist eigentlich auch schön, ne?
I could try and find out. I could have a look and tell you. They might be awful programs. I don't know. They might be good. Sure. We don't know what the bank was either. I never found out.
Speaking about the bank, people always ask, can you live from library music? Is that something you can make a living of, or is it just one aspect of your day job, if you want so?
I make a very, very, very good living from it. Yeah.
Also Steinreich?
I got into a good time. A lot of rock musicians whose careers have gone are all trying to get in too late because it's very, very competitive. All but the very top Hollywood composers, in between their commissions, do library music, because basically it's like a pension. I'm making money from things I did 30 years ago, you see. So it's good.
Also kann damit sehr gut verdienen und ist wohl eine Art, auch seine Rente zu finanzieren, sagt er. Und manche Musiker fangen da zu spät mit an. Jetzt muss ich noch mal gucken. Ich glaube, erst Tom und dann Brian war die Reihenfolge.
Yeah, one question about library music. I think it's very important that these pieces of music are very well descripted in sort of tagging. Or who's doing that? Are you after you've composed something, you're thinking about
It's a very good question. No, it's a very good question. The only bad downside of it is that it's not bad if you trust the people, but we give up the power of that. We leave that to the people that market it, because they've been doing it for years and they're supposed to know. It's all internet based now, so people do a music search, and they will tend to go to the company. It's like selling soap in a supermarket. You go to the brand that you know and trust, and I'm with Universal, who are the biggest library company, so they would tend to look for us first, a lot of them, and then they just do a search, fast, slow, sad, happy, but then the description the tagging has to be good. You're absolutely right. The wrong title, the wrong tagging can put people off. Good question.
Yeah. It's his job to questions about that, of course, but es ging, ganz korrigieren, jetzt falsch, ums Taggen von diesen Musikstücken, also einfach, was es sich da entsprechend handelt und wer das macht und wie wichtig es ist, und Anthony hat nochmal gesagt, dass es also für ihn auch wichtig ist, mit jemandem, mit Leuten zu arbeiten, denen er vertrauen kann in dem Bereich, und da ist er bei Universal. Genesis hat Universal auch so. Wo man quasi im Prinzip schon eine gute Datenbank hat und da entsprechend auch weiß, was angeboten und was verwendet werden kann. Brian oder Peter?
Okay, couple of points. First point is, if you want to know the difference between what you're saying and what Christian is translating, I can let you have a transcript very cheaply.
Where can you let this guy out?
That might be useful when the police come after you.
And the serious question, you talked before about sides. And I was 18 when sides came out, so I was right in the middle of the punk thing. I was also in deep mourning because 10cc had split up just before that. And it was very watered down. So the first is a general question. You obviously went for very different styles with sides than you'd used before. When you try to use a new style, do you have an idea of what you want to produce, or do you just play something and see what comes out?
In those days it was different, because to record you had to have the record company had to say, yes, we like this. Now I can do what the hell I like and the record company will put it out. And that's the beauty of computers and home recording. I mean, it's had its downside on studios, but in those days you simply had to do what the record company said, otherwise your music wasn't recorded. Recording equipment was incredibly expensive in those days. With sides, I was pretty much told to try and be more commercial than one was after the event. I actually did write 4 sides. I wrote a long keyboard piece, some of which we released on one of the albums later called Poly Piece. And there was a long 12-string piece, which was sort of a variant of the East Coast, which is loosely called C piece. But of course, it was irrelevant. Nobody wanted that, so I had to go with the songs. And yeah, it was a bit of a struggle, because I remember I had a few odd time signatures in some of the bars, and they were all saying, "Get rid of those, mate. You can't have those." You know, Genesis could do 7/8, but I couldn't, because I had to be trying to be more commercial. So it was quite a lot of what we call towing the party line. At that time, if you wanted to record, you obeyed. If you didn't, you were out.
Was the irony a very conscious thing? Sides is dripping with irony.
Yeah, it was going to be called Balls, because everyone kept saying this hasn't got enough balls in it. And R&R, as I said earlier, is a real piss take of the A&R department. Absolutely. I was full of anger on that, actually.
And Holy Deadlock?
That was Martin Hall's song about his divorce. So I'm outside that.
Wie weiß ich jetzt noch alles? It's okay, I think this is fine, because Brian said that, Brian hat gesagt, dass das geht mir noch jedes Mal. Nein, Brian sagte, dass er 18 Jahre alt war, als Sides rauskam, und das war die Zeit des Punk, und 10cc haben sich gerade aufgelöst, was ich sehr schade fand. Mir wäre völlig egal gewesen. Und dass halt Sides auch ein Album war, mit dem er sich sehr radikal geändert hat.
Verstand kommt erst mit Haarverlust, Christian, du bist fast dabei.
Ja, ich weiß. Nein, also ja, die Frage war halt, wie das dazu kam, und Ant hat nochmal gesagt, dass damals im Prinzip die Plattenfirma bestimmt hat, was es an Content oder an Art für Musik gab, auch weil das Equipment einfach teuer war, was man mieten musste und so weiter, und entsprechend gab es ja, so den Spruch, also die Platte muss mehr Eier haben, so, und deswegen sollte die auch erst Balls heißen. Heißt nämlich Eier und nicht Bälle. Und das ging aber noch nicht, deswegen hieß sie dann Sides. Ja, und es ist halt eine Platte mit sehr viel Ironie und so weiter, und er sagt halt heute, der ist einfacher, weil er kann machen, was er will, und veröffentlichen, was er will, das machen die Plattenfirmen auch, und das war früher halt nicht so.
Let me just add one more thing. The reason why it was called Sides was the compromise was that one side would be the songy side and the other would be the instrumental side. So I should have said that.
Genau, also Sides soll deswegen heißen, also wie 3 Sides Live, nur just studio. Never get rid of this band.
Well, they were there at the beginning, weren't they?
What?
They were there at the beginning.
Yeah, of course.
Genesis, first book of the Bible.
Yeah. It's been a long one. Okay. Peter.
2 short questions. First, on Amana, there's a line, they got you spinning at the crowd. Do you think of Roger Waters?
I translate first.
No.
In dem Lied Urban Ark gab es eine Textzeile, wo es darum geht, jemanden aus dem Publikum anzuspucken, und er fragt eben, ob er an Roger Waters gedacht hat.
No, I wasn't, and I didn't realise he had done. Actually, no, I was thinking more of punk guys who were being. I think punk guys were actually, probably a lot of them were quite gentle, but were actually encouraged by managers to be as extreme and as outrageous as possible to try and get more headlines. So I think a lot of it was very industry controlled. I think if I'd been 10 years younger, I would probably have been doing punk myself. But it was the way the record industry grabbed onto it and encouraged people to be more outrageous.
Also es geht mehr um die ganze Punk-Szene, und das sagt halt, dass auch die von den Managern mehr oder weniger auch dazu getrieben worden sind, so zu sein, wie sie damals waren. Und er sagt, wenn er jünger wäre, hätte er auch Punk gemacht, I would love to see you on air like a punker, you know. We'll do that for tomorrow, it's a good idea. Ja, und das ist der Hintergrund zu der Textseite, also nicht Roger Waters, sondern der Punk. Yeah, he did, that was the reason for The Wall, I think, yeah. When he was The Wall. During the Animals tour, he with someone. We don't know the guy, but...
War das die zweite Frage? Machen wir erst hier und dann da?